Right, so everyone, welcome to Monkey Library's first author chat. So today we are welcoming Carla Vergot with her lovely Lily Barlow series. And we've been discussing a little bit. So she's got one, and I have one here. And you know, the beauty of Zoom and everything like that, everything has to be reversed. But we were just talking about, you know, how much we love Lily. And Carla, you and I have chatted before, and you know, I've looked back certainly on some of your other Zooms and Facebook meetings and things. I did a little homework, but tell us about Lily. You tell us why Lily is who she is, and let's kind of see about where we can go with that.
Sure. So I probably had the idea for this book back when I was at NC State, and the characters were not well developed at that time, and it was very fuzzy, the thought, the kernel of the story. But I was majoring in language arts, writing and editing, and I did want to write a book. And then I left it all behind and did all these other things. And I think if I hadn't have done that, Lily would not be who she is in these stories. So while it seems to put the timeline behind schedule, I think I had to go through that growth period to really define Lily and make her the quirky thing that she is. I am not Lily. A lot of people think it's an autobiography. It's not an autobiography. I just wanted her to be fun and fresh, and we all were this way, I think, at one point, where we were invincible and we could do anything, and our dreams were really huge. And before she has a lot of commitments, she has all of this potential, and she can really go in any direction at this point. And what she knows, she doesn't know much, but what she knows is she wants to be out of the town of Marshall. It's too small for her. She has outgrown it, and she's ready. She's ready to get on with life. So that's Lily.
Well, you say that it's not autobiographical. However, I think quirky and you are really synonyms there.
I can say this.
Quirky things about you.
I can say this, Kate. Some little like stories that have happened throughout my life work themselves into the book, because I think they're just so funny, and they deserve to, you know, to have a place of history or historical recording. So they've worked themselves into the story. That, I think, is fair to say. That part reflects a little bit on me. But yeah, maybe we share some quirkiness. That might be true. I intentionally had to make Lily different than me in some ways, just to drive home the point. Like, she doesn't really love to be outside. Like, camping is not her thing. I love to camp. She could, you'd have to pay her money to get her to go fishing. I enjoy fishing. So stuff like that. She doesn't like to, like, she's never taken her Jeep off-road, and I like to take Jeeps off-road. And I found myself doing that, like, intentionally to make us different. And it was a little bit sad for me, because I like to write. I would enjoy a character who likes to take her Jeep off-road. That to me would be a funny character. But I think that would be way too close to home. I mean, the people that know me would then say, okay, obviously this is Carla. So I tried to make her different in that way.
And go ahead, and the Jeep is something special throughout the books. Go ahead and tell everybody what the Jeep's name is.
Lily's Jeep is named Sandy with an I. All the Jeeps at our house have names, and we're down to two, actually. We have Dusty and Trixie are the names of our Jeeps. And I'm on a little bit of a tear, so let me go ahead and tell you this story about how Lily got her name. My husband and I were in Sedona, Arizona, and we rented a Jeep out there so that we could experience some of the off-roading. It's pretty phenomenal out there. And the company that we rented from was a company named Barlow, which named all of their Jeeps. So we had this white Jeep from Barlow, and the Jeep's name was Lily. And that is how Lily Barlow got her name.
That is
Yes.
perfect.
So
Yeah,
Lily's Deep
like
is
you said, life kind of dictates sometimes how things are going to go for you, right?
comes in for sure. Yes.
And that kind of drives my next question or talking point. I know that there are a lot of people out there, who say, oh, I want to write, but I don't know how to start. How do I get the story from my head onto the page? And you mentioned something on one of your interviews, and I just had to stop and laugh for a little bit because I was like, oh my gosh, of course this is what she is. Like, of course. You said you were a pantser.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a pantser for sure.
So go ahead and tell everybody like what your writing process is and kind of how you get it from point A to point B.
So I will say, I think that's the hardest and kind of one of the scariest parts about starting is going from point A to point B. And I don't think it's uncommon at all for people to struggle with that. I did, and I have a background in writing. So if a person who's trained to write can't start writing, that just goes to show, I think, that it's not the easiest thing in the world. The first thing that I did, Kate, was I got a critique partner, and we held each other accountable. Like we set it up like a business where I would go over to her house. She had a desk set up for me, and we would sit down and we would go to work, sometimes for 8 hours a day. And it wasn't go to work. It was seriously get to work kind of a thing. And so the struggle was, we quickly learned that we were complete opposites on how we approached the writing process. She is a plotter, which is the detailed person who has all the sticky notes on the wall and the flow chart, and all the characters are, there's strings attached to things, and there are pictures and murals on the wall. And the pantser doesn't do that. The pantser just writes from the seat of your pants. So when I started the story, there were a couple big things I knew were going to happen, but there was no plan. There was no plan how those things were going to happen. And I would write along and sometimes just be shocked, like, wow, I never saw that coming. But that is money. And I would just go with it. Like, I think I've heard other authors say this, that the characters start to tell them what is going to happen. And it was very true in my case. They just sort of took over, and I let them. I just let them. They didn't become too unruly. And there was never a time when I had to back out of one of the directions. I just followed it until we got to the next turn, and there it was.
One of the things that I love is that the books are so fresh. Like, you can come across and you also made a comment about you created a new genre. What do we call it? It was rom-comistry.
Rom-comistry, and I can't take credit for that because this was when I just started kind of developing a following or building a community on social media. And I started with Facebook, so I knew nothing. I had nobody in my corner at that point, and I was just looking what other people were doing, and I saw someone use the term rom-comistry, romantic comedy with a mystery, which sounded hilarious to me. I had been using up to that point Mr. Mance, mystery with a romance, but it didn't have the comedy other than Mr. Mance sounds funny. So when I saw rom-comistry, I actually asked her if I could borrow that genre, and she graciously said yes. And to this day, I couldn't tell you where I got who she was, who started that. It wasn't me. But I think we're the only two people using it. And I hashtag it all the time because I feel like if we could just get enough hashtags out there, somebody will pick up on it and there it will go.
Well, there you go, everybody. We need to hashtag rom-comistry every time that we mention a book like this, which honestly, I haven't come across. Now here's my disclaimer. I'm a historical fiction nut. Those who know me, those who work with me know that historical fiction is my jam. And the only reason I even picked up your book was because of that cover right there.
Did you like the skull?
Covers are the most brilliant piece of marketing ever.
Oh, wow.
Cover love, I need to be married to your covers. So I mean, I've heard the story, but of course not anybody else on here have. Tell us about the covers. Now, I don't have Lily 1, so show Lily 1.
I have Lily 1 here, right here.
So I have Lily 2.
Lily 1. So we started with, obviously, with this one, and when I wrote Lily 1, I knew it would be a series, but you write the book and then you question yourself, do I really have a book 2 in me? So I wasn't sure, but once book 1 came out, I was thinking ahead. The series may be 8 books. How do I unite them? And it just came kind of naturally that they should all have something on the cover that sort of works together. So the artist who works with my publisher is basically brilliant. And I gave him a sketch, like kind of a word sketch of what I was thinking. And he sent back some ideas. I'm like, oh, that is not at all what I'm thinking. So there was a very short period of time where we just exchanged, 1 or 2 more conversations. And then next thing you know, bam, here's the cover. And at that point, I just had to ask him to tweak it just a tiny bit, because obviously this skull, the first sugar skull, plays on dough, D-O-U-G-H, because of the bakery. And the stuff has to be bakery related. So there were some things in the skull that weren't. There was a can of tuna, there was a piece of pizza. Like, I'm like, dude, has to stick with the bakery. We have to have bakery stuff. And the next version of it was basically perfect. He is really great. So at that point, I thought, I want book 2 to have a skull, but I want it to be different, almost like it was done by a different artist. Like, it would just be the theme, but the artwork would be so special. And I actually kind of went down a bit of a rabbit hole. I identified a student that I think had a lot of talent, but we just couldn't make it happen. So the publisher went back to the artist, and my one direction there was, obviously it's in a swamp and the mangroves are important, so it needs to be mangrove related. And I in my mind saw the hibiscus in the eyes.
Yep.
And that's really what I gave him to work with. And very little detail, and he sends this back. He is a hugely talented person.
They're brilliant, and because they really hone in the importance of the artistry of covers.
Yes.
And it really, this is the type of book which needs to be forward facing on a shelf, because otherwise, people are just going to walk right by it. They're going to see that. They're going to be like, okay, whatever. They're going to see that though, and they're going to be like, okay, that's me. And honestly, since we've put your books out on the display, because we've got a display of everybody who's doing a program with us, we can't keep them on the shelf.
Oh, fabulous.
I mean, really, it is cover love. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. And like I said, the lightheartedness of it. So obviously a skull on a cover usually means there's gonna be a death.
Right.
So okay, whatever. But you can't get dark and dreary when there's like pizza dough and a rolling pin and carrots and all of these crazy things. And that's one of the things that I really love. For those of you who again don't know, Carla and I met in Tennessee at a librarian conference, and it was a meet and greet. So she was able to go ahead and sit at her table, and anybody who wanted to could come up, get a signed copy of her book. And here's me standing in the aisle saying, this book has chickens in it. Because again,
it does. It does. It has chickens in it.
Chickens,
And the chicken, can I tell you the chicken story? If anybody's
yes.
The interviews before, I often tell the chicken story. But when we said life comes into the book, it's so true. we had chickens. My husband and I had chickens. We had up to 7 chickens, and really it was a fun experience if you've never done that before, which we hadn't. So there was a learning curve, and then we had these chickens, and the chicken is kind of the new dog where everybody loves them and they're entertaining and you learn so much about them. So we were committed to free range, and we wanted the chickens to be able to go where they wanted to go. And as a result, we ended up losing a lot of chickens because we kind of live in a wooded area, and we've got foxes and possums and all these prey. So anyway, a friend comes over to the house to give me something out of her trunk. She gets out of her car and she pops the trunk, and one of the chickens actually flies up onto, like, the trunk is lifted, flies up on, and she's like face to face down with the chicken, and she screams. And I thought that it was so priceless that she now is like the butt of all of the jokes between Lily and the chicken, because that's where it came from. That reaction is Lily to a T. She just, I think if you're not comfortable with chickens, if you haven't met a chicken, you might have that reaction and just be really thrown off guard. So that's where Lily has her, like, phobia. I think it's from, she just doesn't have any experience with chickens.
Yeah, that'd be me. I don't do chickens except if they're on a plate, nicely grilled and seasoned. I have no desire whatsoever to come face to face with a chicken. So yeah, that'd be me. You do mention, how in the past you've worked with other people to kind of get you going, to get your work done, so to speak, so that you are held accountable. Obviously these past, and I hate to say that it's been 6 months now, that we've been all trying to adapt to COVID, right? So granted, Lily Barlow, The Mystery in the Mangroves, only released in spring. Hard to believe, but with that being said, it's been 6 months, Carla. Where is book 3? Have you been able to write? That's the biggest question I have. Have you been able to write?
Not well. And the story is there. I have a little under 10,000 words at this point for LB3. I wrestled with what's going to happen. And again, as a pantser, you just sort of have to let it happen. Mm-hmm. But there needs to be something. There needs to be some,
Well, tell everybody so you say you have 10,000 words. Tell everybody what an average book has as far as total words.
Book 1 is 84,000. Book 2, I think, is a little bit less than that, maybe 80, something like that. And I feel real comfortable in that zone. It seems to be just enough where
it was perfect.
Yeah, it doesn't drag on and on and on. I actually had intended to pull the plug at 80 and for book 1, and it just kept going. I'm like, dude, we have to have the end at some point. Just end it. And so I wasn't confident in my ability to produce book 2 at that point, even though the story was there. So I did give it a complete ending. Like, I think people will be satisfied if they start book 1 and they read it and they get to the end and it's done. Yeah. I mean, it can be done. There are some questions and you wonder, oh, is she gonna ever follow up with that? I never really, what happened with this? But it has an ending. Book 2 has a cliffhanger ending.
There's no comparing the endings of the 2 books.
That is
they are totally different. And it's like you said, you always had envisioned in your head that it was going to be a series.
Yeah.
But I think you mentioned in one of your previous interviews that you didn't know exactly how far you were going to take the series.
Correct.
So it's like, you knew you were going to do 2.
Correct.
Was it going to go past that? So I think you had to have made your decision by the time you finished book 2, because I will come to your house. We'll have, Krista and I we'll come over and we'll help you figure it out, because this hanging in this cliffhanger thing that you did, unacceptable.
Krista, how did you like the cliffhanger?
I need to know what happens next.
Fair enough. But did you feel gypped a little bit at the end of book 2? Like you didn't have a complete story the way you did in book 1? Did you feel like, are you kidding me, Carla Vergot? Are you kidding me?
No, I, as much as I loved book 1, I loved book 2 even more, and it got me even more excited for book 3. And you're 1/8 of the way done, so
Right?
I'm happy about that.
I like the math. I like the math. Yeah, I've been slow in writing. Like everyone, we've adjusted our home, work situation. My husband's working from home also. And while I was writing from home, before that, having him here just really changes the dynamic of the space. So there's been a little bit of that. I just, when you just get kind of low and you feel like, I think we're all there. We're all kind of just not quite ourselves. So I'm finding ways to focus on getting through that and getting back to the story. The story, 10,000 words, friends, there is a shocker in here already. And you're not going to believe it. And it came out of nowhere. And so I have to go with it. I have to. But you are not expecting it. We could take guesses all night and you would never come up with it.
So while Krista says she didn't do the "oh darn you, Carla Vergot" at the cliffhanger ending of Lily 2, I did, but I did like the cliffhanger ending. But there was some words that came out of that.
Did you throw the book? Did you get to the end and throw the book?
I didn't, because mine was a signed copy, and I take care of my books.
Right.
I don't throw those. So you mentioned earlier in conversation that your publisher told you needed some super fans, right?
Yes.
So let's face it, we all know some of those big name authors, it doesn't matter if they write garbage, their stuff's going to sell, right? I won't name names, but we all know JP, and we all and we all know those authors, right? We don't need to name any names. So how do you go about this? So you and I met via social media, right? Honestly, I don't even remember how, like, that whole begin, like, right? How do you?
I'm not even sure either.
So, how do you go from somebody who doesn't have really the big bang system of publishing, you really have to go out there and do it on your own. What do you do? How do you get out there? How do you get it from not being just, that little core group in your hometown saying, yeah, we'll buy your book,
right,
but then making it a statewide thing or a region thing or, a whole national thing? How do you get to those different levels?
I'll tell you, that has been the most challenging part. And my critique partner said in the beginning, you have to start doing this now while you're writing book 1. I'm like, no, because the book is going to sell itself. So,
right.
It's a great story and it's fun and people like it. And I'm just, the publisher is going to handle it. And then lo and behold, the book comes out and there's nothing is in place. And so at one point she even says, when can I tell you I told you so? And I said, well, how important is the friendship to you? Yes.
Clearly, the relationship, do you think?
Right. I did start, the publisher did help me kind of start building your community, your Facebook community. But I think I did that incorrectly in the beginning. I just was like, come, everybody come to the page. And I was bringing people who had no interest in my book or my writing or my dog. They just came. I don't care. I can take just any kind of crazy person, come in.
Well, that explains why I'm in the group.
That probably explains why you're in the group. But then I realized that there were 1,000 people and 30 of them showed any interest at any time. So that's when I moved from the Facebook group to the back porch, which is I guess that's actually the group. And I migrated over the people that were really kind of more interested in it and started to build from there. So kind of cherry picking people that showed an interest in and liked this style of writing and liked this genre and were wanting to learn more about it and be a part of that community. So we now are 500, which seems like not very many at all, but I'm much happier with the people that are in the back porch because they want to be there and they want to play the games and have the fun and you know, that part is, it's just a slow crawl to get those people, because you know we're all online and we all have so many choices, and who are you going to land with? Are you going to stick with one group? Probably not. You've got hundreds, right? So I realize that everybody their time is so limited, and I want to make it fun for the people that want to be there. So that's kind of where we're going with the back porch. For the Instagram, this is brand new. Instagram has been hard for me. I'll be honest with you. I've just started reaching out to some bloggers and reviewers, and I'm creeping up in numbers. So a person who had about 1,000 followers agreed to read the book, and then I asked more people, and then somebody who had about 8,000 has agreed to read the book, and right now someone who has 30,000 followers is reading the book. So I think when you ask how do you go from one level to the next, I think it's that. I think it's exposure on other people's sites. I think that's how, if you can just get enough of that, there will be a tipping point, and at some point the book starts to sell itself. But until you get enough people suggesting that the book is worth a read, it's just not there. You have to, it's every day. It is an everyday thing, trying to find one more way to introduce the book to one more person. And sometimes it literally is a person at a time. Yeah. And when you think of, if you're ever going to make a living at this, you have to have more than one person buy your book at a time. But that's where it is right now. That is where it is. So that's kind of all I can focus on, because otherwise you get really defeated, and it seems like it's never going to happen.
How active were you on social media prior to trying to sell yourself?
Oh, I would occasionally post a picture of me in the Jeep. You know, I would occasionally respond to, I was medium, I would say. I wasn't very active at all. It was more of an opportunity to see what my friends were doing, and I let it be that. It's gotten really crazy now with everybody and the opinions and all that stuff, and I've wanted to sort of leave that out of the back porch because we have enough of it. Everybody has other groups where that's part of it, and so we keep it super light and cheery on the back porch.
And you post almost like every day on the back porch.
Dude, it is every day.
And one of the things, so I'm going to steal something from the back porch. So Krista, just kind of play along. So at one point, there was a magnet contest. For those who don't know, Carla's first book kind of started a whole bad trend of magnets. The first book created a skull magnet that kind of looked like the skull was made out of dough. And I wish I had a picture, but I don't.
I had one, but I didn't bring it in here.
Yeah, like I know I should have. So of course, book 2 needed its own representation, right? So there are images that were posted, and so Carla, I'm just going to throw out some of these images, and you can kind of maybe explain the reference as to why you hope. Yeah, if not, Krista, you're going to have to fill in here. So the first thing, we'll do number 1 really easy, okay? The first one is a feather. So why would a feather be a good representation for book 2?
Krista, you know that one.
Or book 1, so I'll let you have that one.
Krista, you can take that one. Is she there? Krista sends me a lot of chicken related things. I'm pretty sure it was Krista who sent me a rubber, you know, those rubber chickens.
Oh goodness!
Like a bag, like a purse, like a handbag of a rubber chicken. Hilarious. She finds the funniest things. So the feather is for representing the chicken, and there's a Maine chicken. There's a flock.
McNugget.
I was just gonna say, Krista.
Sorry, I had to tend to the dog.
That's okay.
Oh, we're talking chickens, Krista. Where are your priorities?
Yeah. So the feather is for McNugget, and McNugget is throughout. Like he is in both books, and I think that people seem to like McNugget, so I'll have to make an appearance for book 3 as well. The feather is the chicken.
The feather's the chicken. Okay, so another one. An orange starfish.
This goes back to book 1, where Lily rented the Miss Delphine's efficiency garage apartment, and Miss Delphine, who, by the way, is I think my favorite character.
I love her.
She is just so salty and like just doesn't care. And she had the key to the apartment on this lucite key ring of a starfish, and it was from a bank or something, a grocery store, but the words had rubbed off, and so it was just an orange starfish at that point. And Lily left the key. She carries the key around on the starfish. She didn't ever put it on her keychain. So it was one of the choices that I presented for people to vote on, the starfish.
So how about, okay, so we'll do a little bit more serious now. The green hexagon.
I can't go too far into that because
I know, but you have to do a little bit.
It's it comes from book 2, and it is an item that Lily discovered. Let's just leave it at that.
I like that.
There's a mystery surrounding it, and yeah, I'm gonna have to leave it at that. I'm afraid if I start yammering on about it, I'm gonna let something.
Don't talk anymore. How about a banana?
Oh, the banana! I love this. They went fishing in Key West, and the boys adhere to the curse of the banana, which if you fish, you've probably heard of this. You can't bring a banana on a boat, and there's some. It's a wives' tale, but there's some legitimacy to it. Like sailors in olden times wouldn't do it, and probably it was because bananas had spiders, and you got bit by a spider, and so you were sick on the boat, and like there was something related to a legitimate banana. But today, it's just the curse of the banana is if you bring a banana on the boat, you won't catch any fish. So Lily just is learning this for the first time. Jack and his brother Joe are going fishing, and she's eating a banana for breakfast, and she starts waving the banana around because they don't want to have anything to do with the banana. I thought that would be a funny one. I got very few votes for the banana.
Didn't I vote for the banana? I don't know which one I voted for. I don't remember.
I didn't know that was a real thing. I thought that maybe Carla just had a real aversion to bananas and wrote it into the book.
Nope, that's a legit thing. That is a thing. And if you look, you can find pictures of boats that have signs painted "No bananas." It's hilarious, actually.
It's, you know, the things that we don't know are really scary to me sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh. Okay, what about A Mermaid's Tale?
The mermaid theme was unexpected in LB2. I didn't plan it at all, but a couple times it came up. And if in Lily Barlow 1, Lily likes to do the dishes a lot. Now, I'm not going to give anything away if I say that her mother died. Her mama died when she was 6. So she has a few memories of times with her mama, but not a lot. And one of the things that she remembers is doing dishes together. And she loved it. She liked to do the dishes. And she carried that with her today. And there was a little bit of a sentimentality because her mama used to say that she must be a mermaid because she loved to do the dishes. She loved to have her hands in the water. And so Lily remembers this. Well, I meant it to just end there. I thought it was a sweet kind of flashback and it was going to end there, but it came back again in LB2 a couple times. And now at this point, there's like, we're considering a tattoo of a mermaid. Like it's just it has become its own thing. It just kept recurring. There's a really sweet beach scene, and I'm not gonna.
It was a good one.
I'm not gonna blab it. I'm not gonna blab it for anybody who hasn't read it.
All right, so let's move on because we don't want you blabbing any of the trade secrets.
The good stuff, right?
So it takes a very creative person and a very creative mind to write a book. I mean, let's be honest. Do you see your creativity show itself and manifest itself in other ways? Like, do you knit or crochet? Do you paint? I don't know. Do you make sandcastles? Like, do you see yourself being creative in other ways?
I feel like I'm a creative person. That's a very interesting question. You know, when I paint rooms with color.
Exhibit A behind you.
Exhibit A, the orange room behind me. You know, wow, that's a really puzzling question, because I feel deeply creative, and if you ask me what the product is other than writing, I'm not sure there is one. I just feel like that's kind of where I function, but
See, so now you got.
And now I'm going to be thinking about this. Do I actually have creativity, or am I just a writer?
The thing, though. I mean, you are not. So I think there is a perception of writers that literally, like, you sit at home and you write at your desk and then that's your life, right? That's not your life.
Yeah.
I think your creativity is expressed a lot in your love of the outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're into everything.
I love to be outside. We camp. I love campfires.
Mm-hmm.
I commune. I have a good communion with nature, and always have. And that's a spiritual thing, really. But we do. We fish. We take the Jeeps off road. We're in the woods a lot. That's for sure.
And that kind of bridges. So your love of outdoors. So do you guys own a camper?
We do.
Okay.
We have a story about the camper. I know we have to probably watch our time, but I'm going to tell this story anyway.
That's good, because that's totally what I'm going to ask you. See, it's a whole bridge thing, Carla. You know, I actually do know where the conversation is going. So the love of camping, they have a camper. Tell us about book 1 in the camper, Carla.
Book 1 in the camper. So you're writing along and you're thinking, wow, this is great. I wrote a book. I'm so happy with it. And then, of course, they hit you with, oh, now you've got to market the book, and now you've got to promote the book, and now you've got to record the audio of the book. It came really out of nowhere. I was not expecting this to be part of the process, and I was really uncomfortable with it. So they had to set my computer up and put it on this, install a thing, and I can barely do the Zoom, and here I am trying to have to record a whole story. So I start recording and I think, wow, this is going to be easier than I thought it was. I send it to the guy and he's like, dude, no way. I can hear your air conditioner coming on. I was at the dog's collar jingling. He heard everything. So then I'm going around the house trying to find the quietest spot, and I'm in the closet, and I'm practically under the bed. He was not satisfied with anything, and I said, finally, the only place I have left to do this is in the teardrop camper. And the first book came out, I was recording it at the beginning of summer, so the camper gets hot quickly, but you can't turn the air conditioner on because you're recording it. Everything has to be quiet. So I would get up. I get up early anyway. I would get up and I'd be in the camper by 5 a.m. and I would record 1 chapter. That's all I could do. And I didn't have the skill to correct anything. So if you're reading it and you have like a stumble over a word, I had to start over. I had to reread the whole chapter over. It took for freaking ever to get this thing recorded. And then I said, that is it. I'm not doing that again. And lo and behold, here we are with book 2. I'm in the camper again recording it.
But how did you soundproof the walls and stuff?
Yoga mats.
There you go.
I had yoga mats and the pillows. I was in there and I had big signs on. It's just me and my husband, but I had big signs on the garage door so that he wouldn't come out recording in process. Don't open this door, because then if I had to re-record that chapter, I mean, it was arduous. That's all I can say.
How did it take you from start to finish then to actually complete the recording of the book?
Probably one, it's like 23 chapters, one a day, and sometimes I couldn't get one a month. I'd say a month. I'm working on it every day.
Wow.
Just because at the point where the day got too warm, I had to be out of the camper. And if, you know how you try something and you want it to be smooth and easy, and the harder you try, the less smooth and the more difficult like your voice gets weird and you start to get grumpy and it comes through in your voice. Yep. So I'd have to throw just a couple chapters out just because I wasn't coming across the way Lily would come across. I'd love to have a different setup. People have said, oh, if you're standing when you record, you can make different, like it's easier to make a voice sound different for the other characters. And I'm like, I can't stand up. It's a 2-year-old camper. It's a mattress inside. That's all the space I have. So if I had like a recording studio, it might be easier then you could stand and you could, if you hold your arms differently, even that can give you like a different voice for a guy or an older voice for Miss Delphine. As it is, I think they pretty much all sound the same.
I tell you what though, as a reader who, back in the day, like audiobooks were just awful, right? Everybody just kind of read things monotone, and there was no emotion to a book whatsoever back when audiobooks were first kind of kicking off and hitting mainstream. And it's really only been like the past few years where I've kind of come back to audiobooks and embraced them, because again, the emotions that are reflected by those who are reading the book are just so much better now. But honestly, the best audiobooks I have ever listened to are those that are recorded by the author, because you guys know the type of emotion you want to impart onto each character. You already know in your head, like Lily's kind of like an airbrain, flighty, smart as a whip person. And some people just don't understand that when they read it on a page. So you already have this character fully developed in your head. So I, for one, appreciate you toughing it out in the heat of summer in the camper to record your book.
Thank you, Kate. I agree with you. I think that the author has an idea of even tiny little inflections, like how it's supposed to, how even one sentence is supposed to sound. And I would have a huge control issue, I think, turning it over to somebody else if they couldn't get that right. Because it's so obvious in my head, but it wouldn't be necessarily to somebody else who hadn't written it. So I think I will be doing it. I hope I can find a situation that's a little bit easier. I rent a recording, whatever I have to do.
Well, check your library. They might have a recording studio.
Check the library. I never did that. It was never, I never had any options. I guess I just don't have the contacts of people who would be using a recording studio. So I didn't even know where to look, but I will for book 3. I have time.
Well, that's exciting that you're going to do it for book 3, that you're going to record again. But
yeah.
I think that we've covered a wide range of items and topics today while kind of introducing people to you and to Lily. We're just a small group today, but let's open the floor and see if Jennifer and Verity and Krista have any comments, questions, concerns that they want to ask you. So if you guys want to unmute and take it wherever it might lead us.
Yeah.
I have a question. No, you can go.
I guess mine was more of a compliment. You were talking about focusing during COVID, and I've struggled. I'm a huge reader, but I've really struggled to keep my attention in a book during COVID with everything going on, and and changes at work and at home. Yes. It's hard, but Kate handed me this book with a skull on the cover, and she said, "You need this." Oh, I devoured it, and then the second one. So
thank you.
It worked. So thank you.
It is light. I mean,
it's fun.
I've told people this before. You're not going to be a better person at the end of it. You're not going to have learned how to do a skill, but you're going to have fun. Yeah. And if you need a break from where we are right now, it's kind of a good one.
It was perfect.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
What you got, Verity?
So my question was about like the writing process, and you were talking about how you're kind of a by the seat of your pants writer, and your friend does the whole like mapping thing.
Yes.
But being a pantsing, is that what you called it?
Pantser.
Pantsing writer. When you do kind of hit like a stopping point, like do you have any strategies? Like you do go back and like brainstorm, or like you do go back and like write things out, or do you just kind of like let it come to you? Do you go on a vacation and try to like clear your mind? Like, do you have any strategies like that?
It's gonna sound cheeseball, but this is legit. I talk to the voices in my head. I say,
That doesn't sound that weird to me. I don't know. Kind of talking things out is how I kind of figure things out. So.
Yes, exactly. And I sometimes have to get the group together, and I point my finger and say, "Come on, you're not living up to what you're supposed to be doing. What is it that you want me to write for you?" And they just kind of will tell me where they're going to go with it. I do, like everybody, especially now, find places where I'm just stuck and nothing seems to come, and it doesn't come easily. And I've told this to other people before too. I find that the easiest way to break that is to get out of the immediate environment, and it could be going to the grocery store, but just open my eyes and start to look around. I have found at a railroad crossing on the way to Marshall. I live near Marshall. The story takes place in Marshall, and I go there once a week. And I'm at a railroad crossing. Periodically, the train comes through, and I've seen graffiti on the train that worked its way into the book. Like it just, if you open your eyes to what's around you, sometimes that's enough to give you the next idea and just break that stalemate.
That sounds good to me. That sounds great. Yeah, just bringing in inspiration from life around you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Krista, what do you have for us?
I was just wondering if Carla actually follows any real life crime cases like Lily does.
Oh, you're gonna harken on that habit, aren't you, Krista?
The Doe Network was revealed to me at when I was watching the ID Network. Y'all know the ID, the one. I was just watching it one day because I watch it a lot, and the Doe Network was part of that case. And so as soon as that happened, and I realized that they were talking about a real thing, I do what everybody does. I run to the computer and I plugged it in and discovered basically the Doe Network, and then I am just sucked into this place. If you haven't done it, just give it a quick Google, because it is fascinating. And it became such an obsession. Like my husband even would say, you can maybe take a step back from the Doe Network, because
there's only so much you can say is actual research.
Right, exactly. And the rest of it is just like a morbid, crazy person take on it. But it's creepy. It is. You see there are cadavers on it that you see. You see skeletons and reconstructed faces, and the faces don't always, you can tell that it's a reconstructed face, and you can tell if it's a person who is deceased, but a photograph of that person. And I just was fascinated with it, Krista. And so I'm always there, kind of in it, just looking at it, wondering about these people and how come we don't, how come nobody knows it? Like if they've gone for such a long time, we know that people have been murdered. Like, why can't we connect these groups of people? And then we watched some other dramas on television, some docudramas about different cases where usually there's a murder or a murderer. I'm just drawn to the dark. I read some true crime as well. I guess I'm kind of fascinated by it. Not fascinated to the point where I would want to do that as a career, but I'm just fascinated by, I guess, the dark side. And that it was important for me, for Lily, not to be a dark story. So I sort of had to balance my darkness of it. I mean, maybe at some point I'll write a really dark story. I don't know, but
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do you think you would have it in you then to attempt maybe like a horror story or something with a little bit more,
Right.
meat on it as opposed to Lily?
I
Who has
might.
no meat on her bones whatsoever.
I wanna ride Lily for a while and kind of see where it goes. But book 7, 8, 9, whatever, I might like to try something that's a little. I don't want to say more serious. A friend of mine actually once told me, "Go ahead, write Lily, get it out of your system, so that you can then write your real book." Which, right? That's a little bit of a pinch, right?
Pretty good real
that
book for
friend-
me.
That friend did come back after reading Lily and said, "Forget what I said. This is your real
Okay,
book." Oh, right. But I think I would like to try it. It's always fun to mix things up. I'm reading an arc now of a person who has written only horror, and he wrote a romance, and this is his first one. And so I'm thinking, wow, if you can go from that horror genre to romance, I could certainly do it. I could take a stab at something.
There might be a murder at the end of that whirlwind romance, but
There might be. I made him promise. I said, dude, I don't do that. I don't read horror for horror's sake. I read true crime, which I find vastly different, even though it can be horrific. But for the horror stuff, I that's harder for me to digest. So.
Well, I think that everybody who does Zoom chats with authors needs to have like a signature question. So this is,
have one.
we talked about this. So this is going to be my signature question. I need to know how you take your coffee.
Good question. Good question. And like everything I do, I don't have a simple answer. I used to be super sweet and super creamy, but then I went on Weight Watchers and I found out that 1 cup of my coffee was like a third of my points for the day. So I had to back way off of that. I use raw sugar and half and half, but far less than I used to. And it's fine. It's pretty good. That's a good signature question.
That's going to be my signature question.
Good
so, guys, we've been on here an hour already, if you can believe that.
Yes,
we could chat longer. We're gonna go ahead and stop the recording. So thank you for coming to the author chat, and hopefully we'll have more to come.
And here's the deal. I know that we thought maybe we'd have some more